So I'm going to make the case that much of the American public, or a substantial portion of it, is starting to believe that Black Americans have spent down whatever moral currency they might have inherited from slavery and from the Jim Crow era. Now, I'm not going to stand up for slavery or Jim Crow. I think that they're awful. But just remember the fact that it was America and Great Britain that did the most to abolish slavery around the world, that it persists in Africa today. You can actually buy a sub-Saharan slave in Libya, and that during the time of slavery, Africans were selling their fellow Black to the Portuguese. I've seen it in Ghana. I went into the slave dungeons there. I know what these people went through, and it's awful. Now, to today's topic, I want to bring up Shiloh Hendrix versus Karmelo Anthony. It starts off, Karmelo Anthony, I'm just going to call him what I think he is, a thug who goes and seeks out trouble and plunges a knife in cold blood into the chest of somebody who's trying to get him out of a tent at a track meet. Despicable, absolutely despicable. And then you had Black America raising $500,000 for this thug. Then you have this case in Minnesota where a white woman, a 5-year-old Somali apparently, attempted to steal from her own baby's diaper bag, and she used the N-word against him. I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's not. Certainly not to a 5-year-old. Goodness gracious. But she's raised also hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you put this into contrast and you go back in time to, say, 2020, when we were at the height of woke, and that everyone was literally bending the knee to Black Lives Matter. And it was essentially a big psyop in order to divide America and remove Trump from office. But nevertheless, the public completely went along with it. And you still see the remnants of woke today. It's certainly nowhere close to being extinguished. But eventually, people that would have never said anything before, that when confronted with her words, Shiloh Hendrix stood by them and said, if he doesn't want to be called that, then maybe he shouldn't act like one. And hundreds of thousands of dollars are pouring in. And you are seeing the racial divide deepen within America with these actions. This was obviously very different than what I remember when I was in college and growing up, when racial relations were much quieter than they are today. But then you see the fact that all of that money that got donated to BLM, that all of that capital that they used with the grievances of Black people, in my opinion, appears to have been spent. Because if Shiloh had said the same thing in 2020, 2021, 2022, there would have been excommunication. But now, people obviously are taking a different approach. And unfortunately, I don't think that they should be rewarding her for her behavior. And this is pointing to the fact that the Black citizens of America have spent up whatever capital was built up by the white guilt of slavery and Jim Crow. Again, things that I find abhorrent and I don't wish upon anybody, but we are in the modern world where none of that exists. Black Americans have been given affirmative action. They've had judges appointed to the Supreme Court.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I can't.
Specifically because of their race. Joe Biden said so.
I've made no decision except one, and that person will be the first Black woman ever nominated to the United States Supreme Court.
Before appointing Justice Jackson, which is just pure racism, choosing somebody solely based on their race. And now they're having trouble gaining traction. When you burn down entire cities based off of criminals and standing up for Jacob Blake and George Floyd, these two career criminals, America was largely destroyed. And today you're seeing it play out on social media with Black people donating to Karmelo Anthony, wishing him luck and hatred of the white man in the comments, and people also donating to Shiloh Hendrix. Now, which crime do you think is worse? Murdering a football star by plunging a knife into his chest in cold blood, or calling a 5-year-old a bad word that we can condemn? Obviously, for most woke people, it's calling somebody the N-word. For any sane person, it's cold-blooded murder. But that's the difference between these two groups. One believes that the oppressor is deserved whatever befalls them, and the oppressed can do no wrong. So I just wonder what this leads to going forward, whether or not we're going to have an America of peace, of equality, where skin color fades into the background, something to be noticed. Maybe you like it, you're attracted to it, maybe you're not, but it makes no difference in how you treat somebody on an individual level, which is what I hope for. I don't want to have to look at somebody and say, oh, they're black, therefore XXX, or they're white, therefore they're the oppressor. That's just wrong. It should fade into the background until we have basic equality. But it's not equality under the law. Everybody knows at this point, if you are in trouble with the legal system and you're black and you are in certain woke jurisdictions, that you are going to get favorable treatment versus if you are white. I mean, one only needs to look at the fact that Michael Byrd, the Capitol Police officer, shot Ashley Babbitt. And part of the reason that he is skating by is the fact that if races were reversed, you know that there would be massive amounts of pressure to prosecute. The same way that Derek Chauvin was prosecuted and never received a fair trial in Minnesota because all of these people were threatening to burn down Minneapolis should the jury not agree on a guilty verdict. You had people that were going to the trial specifically with the preconception that they were going to do everything that they could to convict Derek Chauvin, which means not listening to the evidence and voting in the affirmative when the guilty plea comes up for vote. So, my point is, once again, that white America seems to have reached the tipping point where we are not recognizing these minor grievances of blacks when the N-word is used in this case, as opposed to the massive amount of support that Karmelo Anthony gets, the murderer. There's a tipping point where people say no more, and it does not portend well for America if we continue to go down these roads, if we continue to have these racial flare-ups. But I'm going to tell you just what I see, and that's that the blacks have spent whatever currency they have, and they should not be trying to cash in these chips any longer, because that seems to be the prevailing growing opinion of white America. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Let me know what you think I got wrong, what you know I think I got right, and your thoughts on this matter. Peace out.